You know, and he's like, they don't have it.
Okay.
But it's really good.
My neighbor's daughter is a traveling nurse.
What? No, it's
She's in her
not.
house, she has a Jeep, and she has a dog, and she like comes into town, drops her dog off with, her parents, and then she just goes off and travels for like 6 months, and then she comes back, and then she lives with them out of their house for 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, she makes.
This
enough
is
money
on?
doing that, and it's short of
I didn't even touch it.
She makes work 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, they got this.
Well, I guess we moved it.
Full-size Brad?
Are we taking your guys'
It's
seats?
still working.
Wherever. It's in the back. We actually copies. This time of year,
He,
those chairs are
called
covered.
his pretty.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
But then they realized they had
Because Charles Medic. This is a good slide. Can you tell? No, it's actually live.
The YouTube?
Yeah. I get an email.
We are.
Yeah, all right.
I thought we could. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
That is a very fortunate trip.
because I think you Dave was planning on not going.
Come back.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So he said,
I have.
Yeah, yeah.
so because he keeps this
Come through all walk
first to be
Well, we don't have.
They're pretty wired. It's a little different. Well, we had a little surprise last night. Somebody put some sticks and there was some inside the rack.
Well, it's like two.
Live?
Yeah.
Just waiting for the wheel to be ready.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was.
Did you let it stay? You make it part of your meal?
No.
I think that's the thing and that's why
You do several.
Interesting.
You do it every high school here.
Yeah, that's it.
so.
Yes.
My concern is landscape. You need to have some bushes. People pull out, I'm not too worried. Pull out and just see the trees.
Yeah.
Charlie or Chad?
Charlie, Charlie said he knew Laves Merchant. Have we heard from Chad? Or Mark?
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
Brad heard it. He said,
We get a motion on that.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah, but remember, they made it through Thanksgiving. Small ones, like Christmas, they get out of Christmas very fast.
That's what, for some reason, I thought it was on the 19th, so it was like bang, bang, bang.
That's all over.
I mean, they
Council meeting's on the first, third,
Turkey.
Thursday.
They're in. Don't be scared, come on.
That where I need to sit?
Well, let me wipe my hands off. I wanna, yeah, whatever. You're just, is that water? There you go, whatever. Oh, gosh.
Good timing.
So maybe we can bring that up.
Hey, Patrick, can you hear us online? I was just doing a little sound check here.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Charles, I see you're online. I don't know if you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, real good. Need to turn the sound down in the room a little bit. Thanks. Sound down in the room. Thanks.
So the staff report was a condition.
How you doing?
It's still
Well, good evening. My clock says 6 o'clock, despite the fact the one on the wall says 5:59. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Martin. Templin.
Yes?
Lane. Huggins. Miller. Maddock. Schultz. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Milburn is absent today.
Thank you. Item 3A, general business. A, approve the planning commission agenda. Any changes, requested modifications, motions? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Charlie, you have any objection to that?
I do not.
Item 3B, approve the minutes of the planning commission meeting held for November 25th, 2025. Any changes, corrections, additions to be made to the minutes? Motions?
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. No? Charlie? Okay. Item 3D, disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business. I received an email this last week from Bonnie Orelli and Doug McGahee. It's not a matter having to do with this particular, anything on the agenda tonight, but I did get an email from them. I did not respond to it. So, other than that communication, I guess the general chatter on Facebook, that's about all I've known. Anybody else? Okay. Item 4, call the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda tonight may do so at this time. Any presentations for information purposes? Seeing none. Anyone online?
No one online.
I'll close the call to the public, which brings us to item 5A, rezoning of approximately 1,200 acres at Astra Parkway and Energy Way from RUR to M1 Light Industrial. Brad?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you have before you is the second rezoning request for Astra Development. It's approximately 1,100 acres. Actually, it's a little bit more than that, but this is primarily south of Energy Way and west of Astra Parkway. So it's really on the other side of Panasonic, and it does go all the way to Evening Star. So it's a fairly good sized chunk of property, but this is the process that we've been going through. They've been doing diligently on the cleanup work, and this property is now available for development and potentially site plans and moving through the system as we review this for the city of DeSoto. So we've done all the appropriate notifications and property or letters to residents nearby. There aren't very many since most of the property is on Astra's site. Johnson County Parks has been notified as well about the rezoning as well. As you know, right now this property is zoned RUR. It's from the county's designation. We haven't rezoned it yet, so before development can occur, it needs to be rezoned to an appropriate DeSoto zoning district. And according to our land use plan and previous rezonings for this area, it's M1 is the requested zoning district. So you can see on page one, this is the aerial of the area, but it's actually, like I said, a little bit over 1,100 acres that is now being proposed for M1. And the Panasonic, as you can see, is in the M1 on the upper right. Flint Development is M1 to the north, and then the C2 zoning, as we did that's on the corner of Evening Star, where the Geiger batch plant is going to be. So it is consistent with the future land use plans and all the plans that have been going on for over 20 years for hopefully future development on this site. Just going to go through the zoning compatibility factors, character of the neighborhood. I mean, this is very similar to the rezoning we did, the initial one, and it's almost pretty consistent with the same size. It was about 1,200 acres on that first rezoning, maybe closer to 13. But there's commercial, multifamily, light industrial, a lot of different types of tracks in this area, but we are focusing on the Astra development, and it is, as I had mentioned, previous comp plans, land use plans have all shown this as M1 development in this area. But we're waiting for the clearances for the cleanup before anything could be pursued on this location. So the compatibility of proposed uses is something that we've looked at for a long time. I've covered that under the land use plan and the existing zoning. Suitability, which it's been restricted under its existing zoning. It's RUR, which is really agriculture. That was just a placeholder for the time being until a more specific use could be identified, and the applicants are asking for M1 zoning. Length of time the property has remained vacant as zoned. Well, as we know, it was previously a very heavy industrial site with an ammunition plant, and then during the cleanup it shifted to RUR, which is agriculture, while this process was taking place, and now we're basically repurposing this whole area for M1 light industrial. Need within the community for these uses, as we've talked about many times, this property was a significant employment center, and when the ammunition plant closed, it ceased being that and went through the cleanup process. So there is a desire within DeSoto to develop this property into an economic area and also a job creator for the city as well. Something that has stopped or kept this area from being considered earlier is the required utilities, but now the city has expanded the water treatment plant, expanded the wastewater plant. Utilities have been extended to these locations. Roadway network has been developed, and fire safety is improved now with a new fire station nearby. So this is certainly an area that has the utilities, the roadway network, and the public safety facilities in place to move forward. The extent which the use is allowed of the proposed zoning would adversely affect the area. I mean, there are some apartment complexes, there is development, housing development going across the street on Astor Parkway. There's also Clearview City. However, once again, this is an area that's going to be on the south side. Those are all on the north side of the track. We've got a fairly significant arterial road with buffering and landscaping. And there's a lot of property there that we can use when we go through the site plan process to significantly buffer and not cause any harm or any of these developments. So staff believes that this is a appropriate use for this property as well. Environmental impacts, we will be having stormwater studies done, traffic studies done, all the things as you've typically seen us do as proposals come in for this property. Lighting, et cetera, and also landscape will be a big part of what we look at before we bring these to the Planning Commission. Economic impact, this is something that the city's been looking forward to for a long time. It has developed revenue for the city, which also can be used and is being used for quality of life issues for the residents of DeSoto. And ultimately, I'm just going to skip to the consistency with the comprehensive plan, the land use plan. This process has been gearing up for probably 25 years to come to a point where there's actual concern and processes and development and thought going into these areas. And now with the utilities, the expanded water, wastewater, roadway network, all the things that have been going on for the last 4 or 5 years, this property is now, or these tracts are now ready to be rezoned for use, and the applicant is requesting M1. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for any questions that you all may have, but this is something that staff is positive on this request to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Brad. Any questions from the commission?
Brad, what would be the southernmost edge of this?
I believe it's 119th Street right down there, and then it does I think, Mike, if you go up to the previous slide, it just have the road network. Maybe, thought I put those on there.
I think it did.
But as I recall, it butts up to the northern edge of the solar area, which was 119th Street.
And the area in the northwest corner that's also owned by the same entity is,
Well, a lot of that is owned by the Board of Regents, and then there are some tracks in there that have some issues, some concrete, some other things that are just not part of this request at this time. There's also going to be some potential property transfer. Sunflower Road's going to be coming down this way, so.
thank you.
Other questions?
That Kansas University land, is that, what is that up there? Is that just, is that used for? Right up there in the corner, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know if it's labeled here. No, but I think it's the same parcel Mr. Huggins was asking about, this quadrant.
Yes.
About 500 acres, I'm not exact, don't quote me on the acres. That is either land that already is or will be deeded to Kansas University.
Okay.
They don't have any long-range vision for that property at this time. I know the applicant and the ownership group of the rest of Astra has had discussions with them about joint possibilities on that, but it seems like, at least on the university side, a little bit of a longer-term effort for them at this time.
I guess, I know that it's been planned that that be developed and that we're going that direction, but I would just like to see some of our land preserved and protected. I just hate to see everything around us. All communities are just filling up everywhere, and I'd like to see part of our agricultural areas preserved. And if Kansas University is going to keep part of that up there and keep that 500 acres, that's good, but geez, I hate to just see everything built up into commercial just because there's a blank space. I hate to see it filled.
Well, I can agree with you, Commissioner, on a lot of those sentiments, but this was a heavy industrial use for, since its inception.
But it's been empty, and it was, cattle were running on it and things like that
That's
before.
true.
So now that it's turned over by this other company, that's probably not gonna happen. But like I said, I just don't wanna see every square inch of land we've got turned into commercial.
Yeah. But you also realize there is a lot of parkland that's been dedicated in Johnson County,
True.
thousands of acres, so and they're actually working on a land swap to make some of Johnson County's master planning efforts a little more fruitful, so.
How current is this one picture that shows the buildings and stuff still inside there? 'Cause
Well, that came off of Johnson County Ames, and they update their photos roughly every year. So I don't know when this was taken, John.
curious if all that remediation in that area is complete.
Yeah, we did get letters as part of the application. I know it was quite long, but there's assurances that those areas had been cleaned and are ready for development.
Other questions for Brad? Thank you, Brad. This matter is a public hearing. Anyone who would like to be heard on this matter, please approach the podium, give us your name and address for the record. Anyone online?
Don't see anyone online, no.
Well, I'll close the public hearing. So the matter's before the planning commission. Thoughts? Obviously, Linda's given some thoughts, so any other thoughts?
I'd have to say this looks very appropriate to me for this area. I understand.
My thoughts.
Yeah, I'd agree with Commissioner Huggins on that sentiment.
Have M1, I would just as soon it be there.
Yeah.
Seems like the most appropriate place for me. I don't know. I mean, it was 9,000 acres of brownfield is what this was when I moved out here 33 years ago. And we've talked about what to do with this thing, and yeah, maybe there were cattle running on it, but you call this agricultural property to start with, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think the Army took care of that back in the forties.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with what I think is probably
The best option.
naturally a good manufacturing site or something that would qualify for M1, which is better than M2. And to me, it seems appropriate. Further discussion, motions?
I'd move that we approve agenda item 5A as presented by staff.
And we were
Second.
recommending approval of the city council.
City council.
Moved and seconded. Charlie, did I hear you?
Yeah, second from, me.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Schultz. Huggins.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Templin.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Meadow.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 6A, consider Merck site plan approval.
All right, Mr. Chairman, this is a carryover from our previous meeting. We do have GBA representatives in the audience tonight. Dairy Oriander is here available to answer your questions. But your concerns were about the fire lane marking and parking, potential employee parking on some of those fire lane areas, and also potential parking where the trucks and traffic might co-mingle, and had concerns about that. My understanding, after talking to the engineers, that Merck's pretty regimented in where they allow employees to park, and so there wouldn't be any service vehicles or employee vehicles near the truck stop or truck docks or anything like that. And then, of course, I did talk to Cameron, who is our building official, fire marshal, and that's something that they take care of to make sure that those lines are placed on the document or placed in the field as they're supposed to be. And he did a pretty extensive review on the fire lanes on this project, so I appreciate his hard work on that. But I know that GBA would like to address the commission and just kind of clarify any questions you may have.
Certainly, I have no objection. You guys? Just for background, I think the conversation last time largely focused upon the fact that we have a number of interior buildings that have no parking indicated anywhere. And the second is that the construction site parking and questioning whether or not that's got access onto 87th Street, and whether 87th Street's going to become a thoroughfare for this during construction. Those were the two things that stuck out to me anyhow. I don't know if others may have other thoughts, but.
Yeah, quick question. So if we can zoom out a little bit, I'll just give you some context here, and maybe that'll help your understanding of what we're proposing here. So on the very south side of the site, we have employee parking, which is the large paved parking lot. All employees coming onto the Merck site will park there. They will not go any further north than that parking lot. So that sort of alleviates.
Pointer?
Absolutely.
It will show up on that screen, but not the others. Turn it around. There you go.
Thanks, Mike. Yep. So right there is the employee parking lot. And what you're also seeing is there's two access drives off of 91st here. Trucks will enter into the far east drive and continue north stopping at the guard shack, getting security clearance to then allow them to enter onto the larger development site. All other traffic, visitors and employees alike, will enter into the west drive and then proceed to park in this parking lot. So to your question of employees necessarily parking on the fire lanes interior to the site or blocking hydrants will not be likely. To further talk about traffic flows, once the development goes live, all employees and traffic that is coming onto the site will traverse across 91st Street. The bigger concern with regard to traffic is probably the ramp up of construction. And so taking into account Brad and the planning team's comments and suggestions, what we are planning for via our trip generation memo is to direct construction traffic across along 91st to the west and then on to Sunflower, north on Sunflower, up to 87th Street, and then east to a construction entrance right about there. So the bulk of construction traffic or even construction work traffic will enter off of 87th and then enter into the site and generally will park here during the construction period services or period of the development. So I hope that gives you a little bit more context on how we're sort of mitigating construction traffic and then on to employee traffic once the buildings go live. The other thing that they are also considering that we will document and reflect in our trip generation memo is that construction traffic will avoid peak hours of school, not to interfere with drop-offs in the morning at the high school to the east, and not to interfere with pickups in the afternoon for the high school to the east. And so mitigating those peak hours, it hopefully will not cause too much of an impact to traffic as they exit off of K10, going north to the roundabout circle on Lexington, and everybody else that's sort of impacted by this. And so that is our plan to mitigate conflicts with traffics there at the interchange and to help direct construction traffic around those constraints. Any questions regarding that information?
I will say that's very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I guess my concern was that if you had a need for emergency vehicles, if you have employees who are disabled for whatever reason, at least temporarily, need access to any of these buildings, there literally is not a single parking spot close to them. Yeah, I understand that able-bodied employees are gonna park on the other side of the fence and walk across, but if there's somebody who's on crutches, what is he gonna do? And it just struck me odd that there's not a single parking space for anyone who might need an access issue.
Yeah, working with Merck on this project, they are very sensitive to those issues and topics. The entire campus itself will be ADA accessible, so we will be providing ADA routes from the employee parking back to any entry point of the building.
What does that mean? Because there's no parking spots.
True. So ADA parking is provided in the employee parking lot. To get someone of that condition into the campus, they would enter just like anyone else into the security guard there. Once they pass that checkpoint, it will then be upon Merck's ability to then make sure those folks have ways to get to where they need to get to.
So even if they had a golf cart, there isn't a place to park a golf cart, which is why it's just a little weird.
Yeah, well, this probably has to go and have regard with Merck security.
Okay.
They do not want employees or public in the interior of their campus.
Understand.
And so they've got measures to assure that that doesn't happen. For someone that is employed by Merck or needs to enter onto Merck's campus that has those disabilities, I'm sure Merck will be very accommodating to make sure that those folks can get where they need to get.
I trust you. It just seemed weird. The other issue is obviously the construction traffic, and I do understand that the memo details that all traffic should go down 91st Street, go up Sunflower Road. What if it doesn't? What do we have to enforce that? If it's just a memo that says that's what we intend to do, I don't know that you're gonna necessarily have control over all those contractors who come and do your work, and if they wanna take a right and go out 87th Street to Penner because it's easier for them, that is a bit concerning. The other point too is that this isn't just the high school. We have the elementary school immediately to the west, and then we have the middle school at Penner and 87th Street. So you got 3 schools right there that we're gonna have construction traffic that we have to deal with. And so those were the reasons for the questions. I appreciate the response, but if the response is only that we have a parking or a traffic memo, I'm a little concerned that that addresses the issue. But I'll defer to city staff if they're comfortable with that. I don't know how we'd ever enforce it.
Yeah, I think, we've had a lot of conversations internally about this, and we do believe that Merck's intent, J.E. Dunn being the general contractor, their intent is to abide by all the city suggestions. I do feel like they are prepared to meet that condition if it is stated in their approval. And at any given point, if they're not meeting that condition, we can stop work. So I think that's the leverage and sort of checks of compliance that we need to approach as we kick off our construction. I would love for the city to be present at that meeting, to voice that concern, and we will continue to voice that concern throughout the process.
So will you be monitoring that then? I mean, we don't want to wait until there's a critical incident that brings it to somebody's attention. We want it monitored before.
Yes, I think us on the design side team, we will be monitoring that. We are going to ask the general contract to monitor that. And I think what we can obviously do is have some regular periodical check-ins
Yes,
to provide a report that we are abiding by what we say we are going to do.
that would be good. Thank you.
Maybe at least give some legal teeth to this. Should we add an additional condition with regard to that traffic flow? That they will abide by the terms of the traffic memo or something like that?
I think that'd be appropriate, Chairman.
Submit reports.
Okay. One other thing, just maybe not to nitpick the report that we have in front of us, but there's a reference there to the Rio Apartments. I'm guessing that was probably wrong.
Yes.
That should be Merck, right? Okay. So I would propose at least 2 modifications to the report if we're going to approve this. Would be obviously the name, and then second, to add a condition that the applicant will abide by the terms of the traffic memo and submit periodic reports as to traffic flow or traffic issues during construction. It's really all I'm worried about. I have no reason to believe that people going there during the regular workday are not gonna follow the rules. I'm worried about the contractors that are, may not necessarily understand.
Sure.
So during construction. Other comments, concerns, objections, protests? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Matters before the Planning Commission, any further comment? Motions?
I make a motion that we approve the submittal with the stated recommendations, modifications to the city council for approval.
Actually, I think we just approved this one,
Did we just approve this one?
the site plan.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So motions for approval with the modifications. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Maddox,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to do that. Okay, item 7A, consider preliminary plat for Cedar Valley Estates. Before we get too far into this, there was some discussion that I participated in with Patrick earlier today about this. This particular preliminary plat and final plat that are before you today is for a piece of property that we did a rezoning for. That rezoning is going to go before City Council this week. The way the timing worked out, because we moved our meeting, this may be a bit premature for that reason. But I think the idea was, let's go ahead and do the presentation, and so that everybody knows what we're talking about, but it may be appropriate for us to consider to table this until at least that's done, and certainly to give folks an opportunity to take a look
I
at it.
had a bit of concern about that myself.
Right, so, just with that background.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Went through the process for evaluating the preliminary and the final plat, and I'll just present like we're going through this. And but most of our effort tonight really will be on the preliminary plat. That's where we get into a lot of the details for the drainage study, the cul-de-sacs, the sidewalks, the road alignment, the lot sizes, and of course the items surrounding the drainage and the floodplain are utmost concern to the residents that have been communicated myself. One thing also is important to note on this one, the applicant's asking for a rural subdivision, which we do have provisions in our code for that, and I put those in the staff report that they're shown on the city's future land use map. Now, we don't have a rural subdivision overlay area, however, we do show this area as large lot, single family, ultimate in our development plan. So my opinion was that sort of met that requirement. Also, it cannot have sanitary sewer or anything like that, is not available, and we do not show any kind of improvements in our master plan for sanitary sewers in this area. So it's septic only, must be in the RO or R1 zoning district, which is going to be on the city council's agenda on the 18th, just a couple days from now. And then it must be in an area where rural patterns are already established, which is pretty much what Eastern DeSoto is all large lot rural subdivisions or homesteads. The other thing that's interesting about the cul-de-sacs, the applicant is asking for a cul-de-sac a little bit longer than 2,000 feet. So you can see as it meanders through the site, they really just just sort of splits the property so they could get an appropriate sized lots. And staff is okay with that because of the low nature and low density of this project. We don't feel like there's going to be any kind of issues with this. Basically what it allows them is to do a ditch section instead of curb and gutters. They just have a street and ditches for drainage. And then of course the average lot size must be 2 acres and the minimum size of lots are 1.5. These all well exceed those criteria. So I guess the first thing want to clarify is staff believes that it does meet the rural subdivision criteria. Now, ultimately, the Planning Commission makes that decision, but it is our recommendation, Planning Commission, and that's what we've worked with the applicant on, is that it would be considered a rural subdivision, and that's what they have proposed. So, moving on to the sidewalks is something else we've had a discussion with the applicant about. The Planning Commission may allow alternate sidewalks. And once again, you think about this area being very rural, quite a ways from any sidewalks anywhere. But at some point, Cedar Creek, 83rd Street, could be improved between Lenexa and DeSoto. We do have a plan to study. There very likely will be a trail along it at some point. And so conceivably, sometime in the future, there could be a loop, a connection down Cedar Creek back to 95th and then ultimately heading to the west. May not be in any of our lifetimes, but it's something that could happen, and I think it's important that we think about those things. That's why we talked about having sidewalks internally, which is part of our criteria for a preliminary plat. And so we do have sidewalks shown on the preliminary plat. However, the applicant has asked me to at least bring up the topic of not having sidewalks. Once again, there's 19 homes. It's going to be very low traffic. Anybody that needs to walk probably could do just as well walking on the street and not have to worry about any kind of issues. But once again, Joe and I talked about it. We feel it's appropriate to have those sidewalks, even though it's something that is a very long-term item. And I know, Chairman, you live in a large lot subdivision with no sidewalks. And so I don't know if
Lots of people wandering the streets. It ain't real safe. I get
so that's part of the reason why we have asked that they be included, but the applicant has wanted you to at least consider the thought of having no sidewalks in the area.
The sidewalks you're talking about are ones that actually front Cedar Creek Road?
No, they're on 88th Street.
They're on 88th Street. The sidewalks are on 88th Street.
Yes.
Okay.
And then ultimately, I also have here in the proposed cul-de-sac length is about 2,200 feet, which is longer than we have, but it's, once again, a very low dense area. And feel like the density of the
Okay.
development would not hinder or be a problem for safety vehicles coming and going as needed. And then finally, the drainage issues as well. A couple things I'd like to point out is actually, Mike, if you go to the next screen, it shows the buildable lots on this area. It also shows that, well, there's the grading development plan. So the road is going to be raised up, and the applicant has also indicated that they will be wanting to raise up the heights of the pads for the homes themselves. And then also on that map, you can see there's a bank. We have a 120-foot stream corridor. I think, Mike, if you go one more, this is the buildable lot area. And those areas are outlined in the light green. The dashed line there is the 120 feet from the edge of the bank, which is, we have a stream protection. Part of our ordinance is to have protecting the bank of the stream. And that actually, if you recall, came up with the carriage houses when they were putting their buildings along Cedar Creek, that they had to respect that as well. And that's something that the applicant has shown on this, just to give you an idea of where potentially, where the floodplain is, where that stream corridor is as well. Then also, we do have a fairly significant drainage report, and I was going to let the applicant take you through that. Joe's also reviewed that and worked with them on that process to make sure it meets our criteria. So if you have any questions so far, it'd probably be a good stopping point to
You mentioned
respond.
the possibility of future trail system. Does Johnson County or DeSoto have any plans for a trail along this stream?
I'm not aware, our Parks Board hasn't taken that up as far as going up along Cedar Creek Road, but certainly along 83rd Street, all the way into Lenexa. So it's really, my thinking is it's not inconceivable that at some point Cedar Creek might have a trail system that loops all the way around on 95th and back to Kill Creek.
But not along the creek itself?
No, this would be along the road, and then actually, I think it goes actually into Olathe. Is that right, Mike, for a little bit when it goes underneath K10? I think that's Olathe.
Yeah, right.
So we've got some jurisdictional things we'd have to work out, but that's our thoughts on that.
A couple thoughts.
Brad,
Go ahead.
I definitely would have to agree with you on the sidewalk. Just being a resident of Waverly and 98th here, that development that went in right across the street from us put in a really nice wide sidewalk. And I gotta tell you, there's not a day gone by in the last 3 months that I haven't seen it. At least 2 or 3 people walking on that thing. And to the commissioner, to the comment that was made earlier about people not being on the street and being on the sidewalk and making it safer, that I 100% agree with that. I think that in these larger lot developments, this is a really nice addition, and I agree with staff. We should probably make that a recommendation.
Yeah, I guess I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner, because the only previous large lot development we have was the Arcadian Estates, and that's also one that we've had them put sidewalks in. So to be consistent was also important that we.
I totally agree with that. I guess the question I would have is, we have in the past done these where we've had as a requirement that they give a covenant not to protest about it. At some point later. And if that's a timing issue, then so be it, but I have no problem making it part of
Okay.
the other question I have, at least one of the lots that's called out here is straight 1.0 acres. Can we even do septic in 1 acre? I thought it had to be acre plus.
It needs to have a 1 acre buildable area, meaning no easements right away. I'm not sure. I thought I was certain all of them were much larger than an acre.
No, they got some here that are 1.1 and 1.0.
That might be the buildable area, but I believe the whole lots themselves are larger. But I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
So those are just the buildable area?
Yeah, that's for the septic, to allow, like, the acreage needed for the septic.
So is 1.0 buildable area sufficient, or does it have to be more than 1?
For a septic,
Yeah.
it excludes the easements, so it meets their requirement.
Our standard is one acre
I
for a
always thought it
septic.
was 1+, but maybe I'm wrong. I just don't want you to do this and not be able to build on it.
Well, we can talk, we can discuss that.
Well, I think the recommendation is gonna be ultimately that we table this, so you have some time to maybe look at that, but that's one of the things that's stuck out. You don't wanna end up with lots you can't put a septic on, cause that's the only thing you're.
Yeah, I think the 1 acre, well, the reason we say 1 acre plus is because it cannot include utility easements. And I think the way this is drawn, if you look at the green box, and I've got my cursor over the 1.0. I think the 1.0 does not include the easements and the setback.
It's not my land, so make sure it works for you.
Yep.
Okay,
So the septics would be in that green boxed area? They wouldn't be down in the floodplain?
Correct.
Definitely don't want it down there.
so we have this micro storm study, which I have not read in detail. I would love to have somebody kind of help explain it a little bit of what you guys looked at. I don't know what you guys think.
Be very helpful, because way out of my league there.
Okay, I think you indicated we have somebody here that might be able to help us understand what this is. Thank you. Give us your name and address for the record.
Todd Allenbrand,
Hey, Todd.
102 Abbey Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, Renaissance Infrastructure Consulting. I'm here with the clients, the developers, Trent and Brad Teeger, and then with me are a couple gentlemen from our staff that one of them can probably speak on the stormwater report in much more detail than I will be able to. But I'd like to just address a few things, if you may, real quick. One, the reason we don't want the sidewalks is, for one thing, this size of lots, 3 acres or larger. I mean, it's not common to have sidewalks in those subdivisions this size in the county, almost anywhere. Now, the developments that were brought up earlier, I think if you look at those, you'll notice that those are higher density lots and they're curb and gutter. This is a ditch section, so it's, asphalt with the ditch sections to carry the water. We just don't feel like that it meets the surrounding neighborhoods, the characteristic of the surrounding neighborhoods. And also a lot of times, and I don't know how everybody's familiar with the larger lots like this, but I think a lot of people, if they're wanting to go in between neighbors' houses, I mean, I see them, probably using like a side-by-side or a golf cart and just going across their land to get to it. And that was kind of the issue on the sidewalk. And plus, there's obviously no sidewalk out on the Cedar Creek Road. We did dedicate an additional 20 feet for Cedar Creek Road in the future to accommodate curb and gutter, and then a path on the direction of the city. So that's kind of our main concern about the sidewalks. And also, it's just, the cost for a sidewalk in these large lots is extremely high compared to smaller, more dense subdivisions. So I think the big argument is the road is a different characteristic than the other subdivisions. It has smaller lots, curb and gutter. These are just a ditch section. Then another item that I'd like to address, a couple other items. Staff wanted a street light at the end of the cul-de-sacs, which, again, we're trying to keep this more like what we see in larger lot subdivisions. Not having street lights on the street, allowing the homeowner to light up their property however they feel appropriate for them, get a little more privacy. Now, we're not opposed to a street light at Cedar Creek Road and the new connection. That makes great sense, in our opinion, just helping them get out on the traffic. So, we were looking at reducing the street lights down to just one, eliminating the sidewalks, and then also, just to help out with the length of the cul-de-sac, we have the little short one, and about midway, we've created this, essentially a little turnaround for some relief for people if they realize, hey, this is a dead end and they don't have to drive all the way to the end to turn around. They have an opportunity to turn around sooner. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that maybe I need to address with you guys. Probably not, unless you have some specific questions on some of those items
Well, I
we
think
talked about.
Most of the people are worried about flooding.
Yeah,
So-
I understand that. But those are just some stuff that I wanted to bring up, you know, see if we can get a waiver exception on those few items. And then the only other thing, and talking with Brad, we're not sure, maybe we can get some help here, is if we're allowed to get a deviation from the street trees. What we had proposed initially to the staff was going with 80-foot centers along the lots for street trees versus 40-foot centers. And what we don't plant, if we go to the 80-foot centers, the trees that are lost by going from 40-80, they would just, in their documents, covenants, restrictions, they would require the homeowner to plant more front yard trees to offset the difference in the count. So that was kind of one thing we wanted to look at as well. I don't know if you guys looked at the street tree plan, but it looks pretty, you know, soldiered up on big lots. It looks a little, I don't know how to say it, a little bit crowded and kind of busy. So that was the issue about going to 80-foot centers. And those are the only items. And about the septic system, I think it would be good if Brad came up. He's been talking to the city staff about septic, so he's got some information about it. And then maybe we can have, then Dusty can come up and talk about the floodplain, the flood study. Right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi.
Give us
How
your
are
name
you
and
this
address.
evening?
Thank you.
Brad Tigger, 19598 South Clearview Road. And I believe, Brad, I met out there with the lead building inspector and it would be the,
With Cameron and Dale out there.
correct. Okay, so what we did is we dug test holes on lots 1, lots 5, lots 8, 11, and 16 to give a quite sporadic sample of these soil profiles. So 1 being the best dirt that we found, 3 feet down, as is typical for their soil profiles. And we took pictures of every hole that we dug at 3 feet. We also dug build site locations. So we had Renaissance GPS locate 100 feet back from the front property line for build site. I believe your guys' requirement's 50, correct, Brad?
So, yeah.
50. So, but we're trying to make this feel more open and more acreage. I know we're taking it away from a cow field and putting houses here, but we're trying to create that urban feel, or that feel of being still in the country, even though you're developing it. So that's why we're kind of cutting down on the trees and stuff like that. But 100 feet back, and then I believe it was 50 feet back from the 100-foot build site. So we did dig test holes on lots 1, 5, 8, and 16. And we dug those about as deep as the 300 excavator could go, and found no water table, no damp soil, sandy clay that would shine a little bit, but actually really good dirt and not one rock. So, but in all the soil samples that we took for the systems, it was all prescribed as Presby systems. Preliminary is what they said on site location. So a Presby system would be it would not be a sealed system. It would, are you guys familiar with raised drip systems? So the raised drip systems have, they're sealed, so it's like one step up from gravity, which means that the soil is really conducive for a septic system. But as far as them being located in any of the floodplain, that's not allowable. And as far as them, the height of them, if you did have to raise them from recommendation from building, then it would turn into a mound system. And that would still go through their jurisdiction on approval of the system.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions for those test holes?
No, I honestly, the septic is up to you.
Yeah.
So I don't really terribly.
Well, it
worry
was
about
part of
what
our
it
due
works.
diligence.
Right, you
To-
should
To
look
make
at
sure
it.
that we could actually provide homes with adequate, and we were quite pleased with the test holes, both for the building site locations and for the septic.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Evening, Dustin Burton, also at 102 Abbey Road, Kansas City, Kansas, with RIC. Yeah, so trying to study out here. So we're not filling in the floodplain, obviously, and all the development is going to be outside the floodplain, and we're held to essentially staying 2 feet above the base flood elevation as has been mapped by FEMA. So that's kind of the first defense, I guess, against flooding of the subdivision itself is we're not building within the floodplain itself. So that's a positive. To kind of address the stormwater management, as staff indicated, we're complying with city standards. One of the biggest things that we're kind of taking advantage of, if you will, is historically this has always been row crop, which row crop is green vegetation, but it's not necessarily the best vegetation as to slow down stormwater itself. So there is a little bit of but there's a little bit of benefit going from row crop to standard turf, which we indicate that in the drainage study. And the other biggest part of that is the open ditch system. So the open ditch system kind of elongates the drainage way and meanders the water as it goes through from the road, the impervious area of the roadway itself, and brings it down. So it actually slows water down a little bit to where we're able to take advantage of that, and we're not showing a peak runoff from the site. Happy to answer any questions. That's really just high level.
Any questions? So just layman understanding, this building of, when the development is built out, you don't anticipate that creating any more pressure on the streamway than we already have?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's again, it's a very low impact development, so you're able to take advantage of some of the smaller stormwater management systems that a more dense development wouldn't be able to do so. We would need to provide detention for sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Todd Allenbrand. Just to add on to what Dusty said, it's in the staff report, but we did raise the road on an average about 5 feet. And actually in the turnaround, the little circle area, pork chop, what do you call it, that actually is up because that's our controlling factor. It's about 7 or 8 foot of fill in that location. And one thing that we've been discussing with the developers is where they want to set the house. We're going to look at that elevation, and then if that elevation is higher than the base flood elevation, we're going to set MLO 2 feet above that elevation. But their intentions are on the houses. Sorry. Their intentions on the houses sites is on a 9-foot basement, they'll meet that 2 foot of freeboard, let's call it that. We're going to set above the base flood elevation, but they're going to try to go between 2 and 4 on a 9-foot basement, on a 10-foot basement, maybe 2 to 5 potentially, but they have to, it gets to be a little bit of a concern poking the basement any more than probably 4 feet outside the existing elevation. So not only are we setting MLOs to exceed the base flood elevation, but building the houses even higher, the foundations, top of foundations. So, we're trying to do everything we can to protect the homeowners. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's what we want to do, right? Sure. We want to protect them and be conscious of the adjacent property owners as well. Thank you.
So this is not a public hearing item, but for those who are interested in this, I do direct you to city staff to make whatever comments you want to make. I do recommend that we consider tabling this until our next meeting. That'll give you some time to deal with the issues that you identified about the sidewalks, the street light, the turnaround, the deviation of the street trees. keep working with city staff, come to us with whatever you think is acceptable, and we'll be happy to do that at the next meeting and talk about it.
All right, and on those items, we did work with city staff, and they were, basically, we were directed that it's your decision on waiving those, so they can't from us, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad or Joe, but from their standpoint, I don't think that they can waive that. We have to get.
I'd really like to hear from staff as to whether they believe an alternative might be acceptable. And
Okay.
if there is, great, if not, then so be it, but,
Okay.
if we're talking about what you're proposing, for example, for the street trees, if there is some other alternative, that's something that we should consider, great, but we have a rural subdivision
Yeah.
rules for a reason, and so normally don't just waive those without some sort of a trade-off as to what that ultimately to reach the same goal.
Okay.
So, I'd say the same thing with the streetlights, propose something. I mean, the idea is that to facilitate this kind of development, we actually have rural subdivision regulations for that. So
Yeah,
we're not
yes.
holding you to the standard of a highly dense development. That's the point of the rural subdivision. So waiving that is another step, and I certainly wouldn't be comfortable doing it without some sort of a agreement with staff as to whether it's appropriate.
Okay.
That's for me.
And-
You guys may feel different.
And I know you're, sorry, Mr. Huggins, I know you're talking about tabling it. Would there be an option to give us an approval or a recommendation or on the preliminary plat and then table the final plat?
I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm only one voice.
Okay, that's just a thought. Okay, sorry, Mark.
On the street trees, I don't know if I heard you right, but were you talking about having the number of trees that would equate to 1 every 40 feet?
Yes.
And would all those be, where were you planning on those?
Front yards of the
Those would all be
houses.
in the front yard?
Yeah, so, obviously, at the discretion of the builder, kind of where he'd want to put those. So if those frontage, I don't know, I'm gonna pick a number, had 12 trees, and we wanted to go to 6, those 6 additional trees would be planted in the front yard of the houses.
Doesn't seem unreasonable, but give us a proposal,
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
Suggestion where we start.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff would be, in the deed restrictions, so they would have something that they could enforce with a homeowner.
Appreciate it. Any further discussion regarding this or motions?
I'm more inclined to lean towards tabling it until we get further information.
Oh, yes.
So is that a motion, John?
I would make a motion that we table 7A.
We might combine that with 7B, because we can't do B without A.
Okay. I make a motion that we table 7A and 7B
Second.
to the next meeting.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Martin?
Yes.
Templin?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Huggins?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Maddock? He had his hand raised.
Charlie, come back.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. And certainly to any members of the public that were here for this issue, if you have specific things you're concerned about, the drainage study is available. I know it's on the website. If they have specific questions, I would just direct you to staff to try to address those, and that's something we can certainly talk about when this comes up on our next agenda. That concludes our agenda.
Chairman, that meeting will be January 27th.
January 27th? I trust you. Yes. That concludes our agenda. Anything else to talk about tonight?
Joe Johnson.
Motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, second. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Just kind of.